Uh-oh, are we covering yet another game with portals on this channel? Yeah, okay guys, I get it. It's I guess not a surprise to you that I like games with portals at this point. But I definitely don't seem to be the only one, because new and crazy mods for Portal 2 are still coming out every so often. And Portal Reloaded is one of those mods, but then taken to the next level.
Welcome back to the present. If you are ever unsure which timeline you're in, simply observe your environment. The present should always look a bit cleaner than the future.
So what's so special about this? What's so special about Portal Reloaded? Because I'm sure that some of you might have seen the video that I made on another Portal 2 mod, Portal Stories Mel, and this mod is pretty much the opposite in a lot of ways. Where Portal Stories Mel takes all the existing mechanics within Portal 2 and turns the difficulty of everything up to 11, Portal Reloaded goes back to the basics with some rather simple rooms, but then adds in a completely new, never seen before mechanic. I say never seen before, but that's not entirely true, but I'll get to that later. So the mechanic that Portal Reloaded uses is a time portal that you can place on a wall and that you can go through. And as the name implies, it sends you not through space, but through time. You place it on the wall, you go through it, you end up in the same room, but 20 years into the future. And then going back 20 years into the past. And most of the game leans very heavily on this time portal mechanic to beat all the rooms. So every room you step into basically has a future version of that. And often enough, the present room and the future room, they have a couple of differences that will be key in order to beat the rooms. Now at first when I was going into this game, I wasn't too sure how interesting this would be. It seems like a very unique mechanic, but I've been playing the Portal games for quite a bit, and I'm aware that map makers and developers can make use of something that's called world portals. These are not typical portals that the player would place down, but rather invisible portals that connect two areas of the game's world together. It is most commonly used to create these very trippy rooms that seem spatially impossible that you often find when going into the custom games browser for Portal 2. And I was pretty sure that Portal Reloaded was just using that mechanic, but then all the way to the max.
The triple portal device. This marvelous device will allow you to place 3 different portals.
But it actually surprised me a lot because, yeah, the time portal is essentially a world portal that just transfers the player to an identical room that happens to look very old and abandoned. But aside from that, it actually does a lot more without breaking the illusion. And I tried looking around for ways to break this game. I was totally expecting to be able to do it as well because it's only made by one developer. This whole mod is made by one developer, Janis Brinkman. So hey, he did a really good job, I guess, because he added a lot of other mechanics to the whole time travel thing that made the rooms a lot more interesting than, hey, it's a world portal. For example, if you move a cube in the present time in any given room, that cube will also start moving in the future. So you can pick up a cube in the present and then move it to a specific corner of a room, and then you can go through the time portal and you will also find the cube there in that room. And you can even see this happen live if you look through the time portal as you move it. And this I thought was really cool because you can manipulate what happens in one room by doing stuff in another room. You can manipulate the future by doing stuff in the present. Hey, I guess that kind of makes sense.
Understanding the concept of cause and effect will be vital to solving the upcoming tests.
Another way this works is by shooting a portal on a wall in the present time. If you shoot a portal on a wall in the present time, you will also see it in the room in the future. And the thing that goes for both of these examples with the cube and the portals, it goes one way to where the present is affecting the future, but not the other way. So you can shoot portals in the present time and then they will also appear in the future. But then you go to the future, you can change the portals there without them changing in the present. I initially thought that this meant that you had 4 portals at your disposal. You know, you got 2 portals in the present time and then 2 portals in the future. But the fact of the matter is that you actually have 6 portals because the time portal itself also carries things such as objects, momentum. You can put light bridges and lasers through it. There's some limitations on that. So for example, you cannot bring a present time cube into a future room, but you can do it the other way around. You can bring stuff from the future back to the present. So yeah, it can get quite complicated fast. If this sounds all very complicated to you and you're like, no way I'm ever gonna solve these, it's There's a certain way to it, and you'll find that out when you start playing yourself. Because yes, there's like a whole bunch of portals you have now, and you can do a whole bunch of stuff with that. But the rooms are also never too complicated to compensate for this. They're never as complicated as a single room in Portal Stories Mel. And given the fact that if you move the cube in the present, it also resets the cube in the future, there's always a pretty obvious order in which you have to complete the room. Usually it revolves around getting the cube in the present time and then putting that somewhere, then going to the future and then using the cube from the future to do some other stuff with that. Because that's the only way it can be done, because you can't really do it in reverse. If you place the cube from the future on an important button and then use the cube from the present and touch it, it will fizzle out the cube from the future because now you have altered that path, right? So you have to use the cube from the present time first. Saying future, present a lot. I don't know if this footage in the background's helping a lot. I feel like you just have to play it for yourself to figure it out. It's an experience for sure.
Always remember, if you change the destiny of an object in the present, the future version of that object will be affected as well. If this sounds too complicated, you're in luck. The next chamber will only heavily rely on your understanding of this very basic concept.
And as a cherry on top, the mod is also voiced. There's no Wheatley or GLaDOS as companion or enemy, but you are accompanied by a voice that's very reminiscent of the old Cave Johnson pre-recorded voice lines from chapter 6 to 8 in the base Portal game. And when the credits started rolling, I actually realized that these are voiced by Harry101 UK, who also did a lot of work on the Portal Stories Mel series. And I looked him up and man, that guy is still making good Portal content 10 years after the game came out. And here I am complaining that the yearly Destiny content update isn't enough. I mean, what am I doing with my channel, guys? What does this come to? Anyway though, yeah, Portal Reloaded is developed by only one developer. And because of that, I mean, it isn't perfect. The difficulty of the rooms was quite all over the place, at least for me. I've had 2 instances where I walked into a room and then by accident I beat it in less than like 30 seconds or like 40 seconds. And I thought to myself, wait, I did it? This is it? Am I getting tricked or something? Only to then enter the next room and spend a good 15 to 20 minutes being stuck and not quite knowing what to do. I think this is because those easy rooms were supposed to teach me stuff that was essential to the next room, but then because I accidentally beat it, I didn't really get those essentials and I spent a lot of extra time in the rooms to follow. I also definitely cheated some rooms, not by no clipping or anything, but simply by doing stuff that isn't intended. Like I would be placing the present and the future cube on top of each other, which usually causes them to fizzle out, but if you're really careful, it doesn't. And stacking them that way, I was able to get on top of a ledge that I wasn't really supposed to be on yet.
Well, you solved it. Congratulations.
I do think that the developer was aware of some of these rooms and the exploits though, or he just made a fail-safe kind of feature. Because let's say that you beat a room the way it wasn't intended and you beat it in the wrong timeline. There's actually some voice lines for that, and I'll just show you what's going on with that.
Well, this was not the way this chamber was meant to be completed, but good on you for solving it anyway. Please quickly travel to the other timeline to continue.
So yeah, basically he just tells you, hey, you beat it, but that wasn't the way you're supposed to do it. Now go back to the timeline that you're supposed to be in. And it doesn't send you back to the room. It allows you to keep going through with the story, but that's how you know when you cheated the room, basically. One thing the game got really right though was the pacing. I often felt that with Portal Stories Mel, or even the original Portal 2 sometimes, that the pacing was a bit too slow and that too many puzzles kind of asked the player to do the same thing using the same mechanics a whole bunch of times. It was just a little bit too much. But Portal Reloaded does not feel that way. It goes back to the very basics, and because of that there are so many mechanics that are reintroduced to the player with the world portals. Like almost every other level there's a new mechanic being added, like turrets, lasers, light bridges, cubes, all that stuff. And of course we all know these mechanics by now, but with the time portal and how they work in the present and in the future, it's quite interesting to have them reintroduced to you so fast, and it keeps the rooms fresh. You're not going through 7 different rooms that are all focused on lasers just to get to the next thing. And I thought that was really good. That's something I did almost perfect. I think the average player can expect to beat it in like, I would say 3 to 5 hours, depending on how much experience with Portal 2 you have. And I mean, if you haven't played the base game, it's going to take a lot longer. I would definitely recommend playing the base game and then maybe even the co-op before playing this, because that's something I felt as well. With you having access to so many more portals and also always having 2 versions of the same room, it felt a lot like you were playing co-op with yourself, which is perfect for a lot of the people on the internet. Now, with that being said, and me hopefully having said enough to convince you to at least try it out, I now also want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into this game and show you just how the developer pulled off all these tricks. I mean, it isn't like time portals is a 100% original idea. On YouTube, you can find videos dating back almost 10 years of people using world portals to set up the illusion of time traveling. But I don't think that anybody has made a dynamic world portal yet that can be placed on any wall by the player. So in this part of the video, we'll just explore the mechanics a bit. How has the developer set it up? I'll be using some no-clip cheats and some stats on screen to show you how this was all put together. It could be pretty interesting, but I'm also gonna jump into spoiler territory here, like pretty heavily. So if you wanna try this out for yourself, and if you don't wanna have the illusion broken up too much, I do suggest giving it a go, giving it a download, and then coming back to watch the video afterwards. Or not, if at that point you don't care anymore. Anyway, let's just continue. So when you load into the map, into any map in almost any game, you'll have a position in the game, a position in the game world. And so I used a console command in Portal 2 that allows me to see the position of the player. I can see it in the top left here, and when I move, you can see that the position moves. Now I've got a time portal here, and you can see the position in the top left. And I want you to take a good look what happens when I go through the time portal and back and forth. It may be a little hard to see, but the moment that I step through the portal, my position on the X and I think the Z axis are flipped. But it could also be the X and the Y axis. I don't know. I don't know the source engine well enough, but the point is that as soon as you go through the portal, 2 of these axes are flipped, which tells us that the developer basically built the whole map twice in a perfect mirror from the world's origin. So the origin is the 0 point in the game, and it's like right in the middle. And he built one room on one side and then the other room on the other side, the exact same position away from the origin of the whole map. So what this tells me is that if you shoot a world portal on any wall, the game just places a world portal on the other side of the map. And that's how he got those portals to always align. What surprised me a lot, is that this rule always applies. So if you've played through the game, you should know that there are some times when the time portal is disabled because of this green and orange shield, right? It disables and enables it back when you enter and exit a room. This is done because there are some parts in the game where there are white walls in between the tracks, in between the test rooms, for example, that you'll be able to shoot some portals on to move around and to solve very small puzzles. But the developer didn't want to allow you to place a time portal there because that would mess up, I guess, the story, or he didn't build a future or past version of that specific hallway. Now look what happens though if I use no clip to go through a shield to enable my time portal and then just no clip around the shield to make sure it isn't disabled. Watch what happens if I shoot a time portal at a white surface that does not have a future or present day counterpart. As you can see, the time portal still opens up and it basically leads you into the great nothing. Now again, the developer never expected the player to be able to place a time portal there, so he definitely didn't have to build the alternative version. That's all normal. But the fact that the game still placed a second time portal, that's what surprises me. Because while playing the game in a normal way, there are moments when the game removes your time portal for you, saying that you can only place a time portal on a surface that's in an identical location in the other timeline. Because there are places in some of the rooms where, in the other timeline, there doesn't happen to be a white panel there. And so when that happens, the game just removes the time portal. So when shooting a time portal at the wall, I was fully expecting it to just not open and disappear again, because there isn't even a wall to begin with on the other side. But that's not what happened. So my guess is that the removal of the time portal in these certain locations, they're all coded individually and specifically coded to remove the time portal for certain triggers. I mean, I don't know too much about coding, but that's my best guess. And I thought this really surprised me. And so I thought it would be worth sharing in this video. This also means that I can essentially use the no-clip feature to add 2 portals from the same timeline into different timelines, because I think the game adds some modifiers to your player every time you go through a time portal, which basically tells the game whether you're in the future or in the past. It doesn't do that off of world space, so I can use a portal in the present and then no clip to the future, and then add the other portal there to now have my own time portals. Here's another thing as well. A thing that I just found interesting is that every level in this game is basically a whole bunch of smaller rooms, not connected to each other, but pretty far apart in a lot of cases. And then later on, they're stitched together using static world portals. Every room I go outside of and I no-clip outside of, I just see all these small rooms and they're not connected, but then I no-clip back in and I can see the other rooms through the world portals. So I don't really know why this was done this way. My best guess is that it was easier for the developer to mirror a room away from the origin if he just had like more space and if everything wasn't connected. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of stuff that couldn't possibly be mirrored or he didn't want to mirror, so this would be a good solution. And while playing the game, I actually never noticed this. I assumed that world portals would be at play with the time portal mechanic, but I never once noticed that I went through a world portal when it wasn't specifically the time portal. Those are just the things that I wanted to show you. A little bit behind the scenes, behind the curtains. I always do that with video games if I have the opportunity to, because I just find it interesting how these things are always patched together. But to get to the conclusion of the video, I think this was yet another really interesting and creative take on the Portal franchise, and a must play for pretty much everybody that likes these type of games. If not for the difficulty, then at least for the creativity of the whole time portal mechanic and the way it changes up rooms, going from super easy to pretty difficult. But yeah, I hope I got you excited enough to play this. I had a lot of fun with this, and I can only hope that more mods like this will eventually come out and I'm gonna keep playing them. For now, thanks for watching, and bye.